Hello, welcome to HITC Sport, and right, Bayern Munich right now look pretty damn good. The mental thing is though that their starting 11, their strongest team, it only costs a combined 90 million quid. I'm sorry, but in modern football where inflation is borderline insane, this must be the best recruitment policy ever seen. This entire Bayern Munich team, a starting 11 which savaged Barcelona 8-2, cost just over one Harry Maguire. As opposed Man United captain with the head of a dishwasher who looks like he's about to be banged up abroad and spending pre-season showering in the sink. To show how insane the prices are in English football, I'm gonna find the 8 worst teams in England who have a more expensive starting 11 than arguably the strongest side in Europe. Everton, 252 million. Okay, this is utterly embarrassing. Just 90 million quid was spent to put together this all-conquering Bayern Munich team. They didn't even need to fork out for a big name manager either. Everton, on the other hand, have literally coated their squad with gold, brought in one of the biggest managerial names on the planet, and nothing has happened. Bayern Munich are arguably the best team in Europe, with an entire squad costing less than what Barcelona paid for a guy stuck on their goddamn bench. Everton, by contrast, has spent £252 million on a starting 11 stuffed halfway down the Premier League. And if you think that's bad, they also have a £30 million marquee centre forward stuffed on their bench. If it wasn't for Dominic Calvert-Lewin keeping him out of the team, Everton's starting 11 would nearly be more expensive than Bayern's entire squad. Christ, the Everton owner needs to have a word with the head of recruitment, because at this stage, it's like giving your credit card to a blind pensioner and expecting him to do your food shopping. They'll probably come back with a trolley full of expired yogurts, and that's what Everton's squad is, a big lump of stale pitifaloo. Christ, if you're chucking £27 million at Alex Iwobi, you should probably have your head examined. If you based everything you knew about football on transfer fees alone, you'd draw the conclusion that Gylfi Sigurdsson was twice as good as Thiago Alcantara, when in reality, Thiago is to Sigurdsson what a glass of red wine is to a cup of pig piss. West Ham, 156 million. This isn't even surprising. The West Ham owners have been in charge for over a decade, and they are the epitome of believing they're above their station. Both David Gold and Sullivan seem to have this delusion that West Ham should belong amongst Europe's elite. Christ, those men could both go broke, be forced to hand job applications down the local KFC, and they'd still be trying to buy Lamborghinis for Christmas. Look at their squad. This is the sort of reckless, unsustainable spending meant for Champions League level clubs. Sebastian Haller for £45 million, he alone costs half the Bayern Munich starting 11. And let's be honest, he's about as threatening in front of goal as a hungover pigeon. Sure, Jared Bowen provided a bit of energy after Christmas, but still, West Ham paid £20 million to sign a Hull City striker on course for relegation to League One. Pablo Fornals cost £25 million. Excuse me when I get sick in a bucket. You could buy 3 Serge Gnabry's for that price, and still have enough money left over to buy 6 Ferraris and a 3-bedroom house. Philippe Anderson cost £35 million, £10 million more than any Bayern Munich first teamer, and he struggles to get off the bench. Issa Diop was a £22 million centre half arrival from Toulouse, and he cost more than both Bayern Munich fullbacks pulled together. Lads, Newcastle, 126 million. Yeah, Newcastle United, a club who waited 15 years to break their own transfer record, a club who've been consistently outspent by the likes of Bournemouth, and run by a man who only opens his wallet whenever he steps foot into Greg's. This Newcastle team, a club literally starved of investment and a slice of ambition, they somehow have a more expensive starting lineup than Bayern. Does anyone want to explain this one to me? How in a cat's left nipple does Steve Bruce have more to work with than Hans-Dieter Flick? I mean, if you're talking about quality, he definitely doesn't. Let's be honest, Robert Lewandowski has scored more goals than the entire Newcastle squad put together this season. That honestly is just laughably pathetic. One footballer in his 30s outscoring a combined 25 men. What's even more pathetic is that this sorry stale excuse for football team has had 126 million spent on it. I mean, 1/3 of that was on Jolinton, but still. To put it in context, this expensive lump of footballing sludge, a guy less confident in front of goal than rice gum, is more expensive than any Bayern Munich footballer in the starting 11. This is a guy who probably wouldn't pass an audition of Crawley Town. Who else? Miguel Almiron cost £21 million, or 3 Serge Gnabry's. Matt Ritchie was a £10 million acquisition from Bournemouth, costing an entire million more than Alphonso Davies, who's arguably the best left back on the planet. Ritchie isn't even the best left back in his goddamn living room. I wager his bastard cat is a more naturally talented left back than him. Other expensive names like John Joe Shelby, he cost £12 million back in 2016. The Geordies might have thought that was good recruitment at the time. May I remind you though that Leon Goretzka cost less than a Freddo bar. Oh, by the way, lads, getting pretty close to 500,000 subscribers. What a crazy number. Imagine that, 500,000. We can invade Iceland. So come on, lads, subscribe and we can take over the country. Bournemouth, 126 million. Okay, maybe it's a good thing Eddie Howe quit Bournemouth, because I'm sorry, steering a starting 11 which costs a combined £226 million into the abyss, it's worrying. Now don't get me wrong, not a chance was this Bournemouth team worth over £100 million. It just shows the complete lack of negotiating skill at the club, paying over £20 million for Dominic Solanke, a human lamppost, £25 million for Jefferson Lerma. Thiago Alcantara is the second most expensive player in Bayern starting 11, and even even he costs less than this fella. £13 million for Lloyd Kelly, a higher transfer fee than what Bayern paid for Jerome Boateng. Boateng, by contrast, has played over 300 games, won 8 league titles, won the Champions League, become a world champion with Germany. Kelly has played 5 games and mostly played like the footballing version of a used nappy. Southampton, 120 million. Okay lads, Southampton are a good little team right now, but them having a more expensive starting 11 than Bayern Munich is just all kinds of weird. Yes, Danny Ings was a great purchase of £20 million, but when Southampton fans talk about him as if he was the steal of the century, may I remind you that Robert Lewandowski's transfer fee was cheaper than a steak and kidney pie. Honestly, you could get a haircut inside a dilapidated crack den, and even that would be more expensive than getting Lewandowski out of Borussia Dortmund. Who else? Che Adams was another £15 million buy from Birmingham, £15 million for 3 goals all season. Serge Gnabry, a West Brom reject, cost £7 million and battered in 23 goals from the wing this season. What else? Yannick Vestergaard cost £22 million. Listen, I realise this club must be desperate to replace Virgil van Dijk, and when everyone knows you have a cheque for £75 million burning a hole in your pocket, you're probably going to get ripped off. But again, he costs 10 million more than Boateng, and he's not even half the player. Watford, 114 million. This is tragic. £90 million in Germany gets you a Champions League final, and let's be honest, a probable treble. £114 million in England gets you relegated. There aren't many better examples of how utterly overpriced English footballers are than at Watford. They have a starting 11 stuffed to the brim with Englishmen, and how many of them are actually any good? Andre Gray was an £80 million arrival from Burnley, and he cost 4 times what Ivan Perisic did. Perisic is scoring in the Champions League, he reached a World Cup final. Gray, by contrast, spends most weekdays scratching his nutsack on the couch and pretending to like Little Mix music, when most people on the planet know listening to one of their albums is like listening to a family of pregnant cats giving birth. Watford spent £27 million on Ismail Assar, and yes, he had his moments last season, but again, Bayern Munich spent the same transfer fee on arguably the best goalkeeper on the planet. Which was the better investment? Will Hughes is apparently an £8 million footballer. Oh lads. Craig Dawson only costs £5 million. A fairly modest transfer fee in today's market, but even still, that piece of defensive sweat costs 37 times more than David Alaba. How does this make a modicum of sense? Aston Villa, 113.5 million. Lads, the amount of teams who were stuffed in relegation battle last season, and yet still have a more expensive team than Bayern Munich. Wesley is a Brazilian striker who costs £22 million. Again, considering Joe Linton cost nearly double that, maybe that's not so crazy a transfer fee, but I have to remind you, Lewandowski, arguably the most deadly footballer on the planet right now, costs less than a stale Kit Kat. And don't forget Thomas Muller, unconventional yes, but one of the most effective forwards on the planet. And lads, you could buy a bowl of bathwater off the internet for more than what Bayern paid for Muller. Christ, a Muller corner down the shops would be more expensive than Thomas Muller. Tyrone Mings was a £20 million arrival. You could have bought 148 David Alabas for that. Lads, Matt Target was a £13 million lump of fudge brought in from Southampton's bench, and he cost 4 million more than Alphonso Davies. Davies, by contrast, has ruined the entire Barcelona team. The only thing Target's ruined is his goddamn career. Joshua Kimmich was a £7 million signing from RB Leipzig, and he's arguably the best right back on the planet right now. Arguably, lads, alright? Don't worry, Liverpool fans, Trent Alexander-Arnold is still a brilliant player. But lads, he only cost a couple of million more than Frederick Gilbert, a French defender who isn't fit to lick his feet. Brighton, 108 million. Okay, to be fair, Brighton aren't reckless spenders, but still, somehow, even they have a more expensive team than Bayern Munich. Apparently £20 million gets you a 10 goal a season striker from the Championship these days. Neil Maupay is half decent, but again, this guy cost 3 times what Serge Gnabry did. Adam Webster was a £20 million signing, 8 million more than Jerome Boateng. Even Aaron Moy was a cheap bargain, £5 million snip from Huddersfield Town, but that's still 5 million more than what Bayern paid for Goretzka. Leandro Trossard was an £80 million arrival from Genk. That is nearly 5 Van Perisic's. And if you think Brighton are about to slow down their spending, lads, if they wind up cashing in on Lewis Dunk next summer for a mental £50 million, that's only going to enable even more frivolous, unnecessary spending. I'm sorry, I know you need to spend big to survive in the Premier League, but Bayern have chucked together a world-class superstar 11 for less than what Barca paid for Ousmane Dembele. Lads. Crystal Palace, 120 million. Yes lads, this is ridiculous. Roy Hodgson has just overseen 7 straight defeats as Crystal Palace boss. They already have a £70 million rated winger stuck in their team, but considering they signed him from Man United for practical pennies, you can't even blame this massive £120 million price tag on the starting 11 on him. Instead, it's mostly weighed down by the 60 million carelessly chucked at Liverpool for Christian Benteke and Mamadou Sakho. Yes, Gary Cahill was a great free transfer signing, but Andros Townsend was probably overpriced at £50 million. Sure, he scores a few worldies every few months, but that's all he does. The very concept of scoring an easy goal, i.e. a tap-in from 4 yards out, it seems lost on the man. It's mental. This is a bang average Palace team that Zaha can't wait to get out of. He presumably sees his 5-year contract as goddamn prison sentence, and still, it's a more expensive starting 11 than those soon-to-be champions of Europe. Patrick Van Aanholt costs a potential £14 million from Sunderland. That's double the transfer fee for Joshua Kimmich. Lads, what's going on? Anyway, that's the end of it, lads. I think it shows you how borderline insane the prices are in English football. The fact that these sides have starting 11s that cost more than Bayern Munich, it's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.